episode of Words That Kill. And today our guest is Bobby Nash, author of wonderful thrillers and other such books. And he's here to talk about the forensic details and hiding the bodies. So I'm going to turn it over to him and let him introduce himself. Take it away.
Well, hi, I'm Bobby. I write, as you said, I write a lot of thrillers. I write for a lot of different genres, but thrillers and are kind of my go-to. I always find myself coming back to thrillers. I do. Apropos for our topic today, I do love killing characters. Someone once told me, "Have you realized that you've never written a story where nobody dies?" And I was like, "Well, that can't be true." And I went and checked, and I'm like, "Well, I'll be darned." So I purposefully wrote a few where nobody died just to kind of break the streak.
Yeah, I don't think I have a book where no one dies either. I'm fairly sure that there's at least one dead body in every book I've written
Hmm.
or story. So, when you're crafting a killer, speaking of dead bodies, how much counter forensic planning does your killer do beforehand, or does he do any?
For the most part, there's not a lot of planning. Every once in a while, I'll have a killer who goes in with a better plan. Sometimes I like the whole crime of passion and then scrambling to cover it up or to fix it so they don't get caught. But I'm currently writing one now where a killer who is killing people for a reason, and there's a lot of planning that has to go into it because he has to choose his victims for a certain reason. Without giving too much of the plot away, it involves organ harvesting. So he has to he can't just pick anybody. It has to be someone specific to the needs that he's been hired to
Yeah,
collect. So
I,
blood
I'm
types and yeah.
screening for diseases and other things like that.
Right. Want to make sure it's someone who is healthy or they haven't abused anything or there's no those type of things. So coming at it from that angle is a little has given a challenge to writing it to come at it from that angle because you do have to put more thought into it. Or why am I after this person? How do you kill them? Because you have to kill them in a way that doesn't injure the parts you're going to take. So that requires a little creative planning on their part ahead of time.
So when you're writing a spur of the moment kill as versus a planned kill, I mean, do you sort of think about what the evidence is going to be, or that you're going to leave, or going to have to clean up, or
Sometimes, I mean, sometimes I add that stuff after I've written the actual, crime or the murder, especially if the murder kind of is a surprise to me too, because that does happen. Where in the midst of just writing the story, it's like, you know what? I need to kill this guy. Um, in those cases, there was no planning going into it, but I go in and figure that out after. What do I need to have happen? Who's going to discover the body, or are they going to find clues? Or so I'll go back and I'll add those things in after because, and I'm sure you know this from writing them yourself. When you write a clue in my head, I swear there's a neon sign pointing at that, going, "This is a clue." But whereas the readers don't, but to me it seems so obvious because I know what it is, and so I try to be careful about how I plant clues.
so. So when you're doing research for things that you need to put into the book, do you prefer to do your research before you write the scene or after, or does it depend on the scene?
It depends on the scene. Like I said, some of them just kind of pop into my head as I'm writing it. But if it's one where I'm building the story around the crime, or we start with the crime, then before I start writing, I've done some research. I love going out and finding locations that would be good, walking those locations or walking a similar location. If I'm going to have the murder in a hotel, I go kind of walk a hotel that would be similar. So I can just kind of feel it. During the pandemic, my father and I started taking long drives just to get us out of the house. And so I started getting in the habit of taking photos as we're traveling wherever. And we kind of made a joke out of it. It's like, ooh, that's a great place to hide a body. Click, 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 click. In terms of the actual, are they hit on the right side of the head or the left side of the head or shot, stabbed, and all that? I do keep almost like the investigator, I keep a list of here's the clues that we found so that they don't change, 3 chapters later when I forget what I did. I want to make sure that we're consistent. And it's almost like making your own murder board, like you see in the TV and movies where they're solving the case with all that stuff up there. It's almost identical to that. I'm just doing it with the foreknowledge of what's what's going to happen.
So is there something you always start with when you're planning a murder scene, a forensic detail, like how does the blood spatter hit the wall or something like that?
It, depending on which characters I'm doing, if I'm writing for people that this is their job, solving crimes, then yeah, because they're going to go into it with a more clinical approach, or they have a methodology. They go in and we know they look for this first and this second and this third, and these are things that they're going to look for. So if my character is a police officer or something like that, then yeah, I make sure those are details, because those are details they're going to pick up on. If it's an amateur sleuth or someone who is, this is not their job, but they keep getting into these type of things, they may look at different things. So they'll they might notice the blood splatter, but they're not measuring it and worried about it. It's like, oh, okay, blood splatter, somebody got killed here, and they're on to why and what clues.
So how do your killers deal with the post-crime cleanup, like
uh,
cleaning up the blood stains?
yes, you have to make sure that, especially if you're doing one of those killers that plan, like we talked about, they know what not to leave. What, don't leave these clues. You want to wipe down everything, or do we clean up the blood, or do we leave the blood? Sometimes you leave blood as a statement. If it's a planned crime, then that person has brought the roll of plastic wrap to wrap them up in. They've brought the rope, they've brought the duct tape, they've brought the bleach, and et cetera, et cetera. In a crime of passion, they haven't thought that far ahead. So they didn't bring anything because they really weren't planning to kill someone. So then it's okay, we will use the bed sheet to wrap them up in, or things like that. And so then you're the person trying to solve the crime is going to see, if you walk into a hotel room and the first thing you notice is that the bed sheets are all missing, it's a good, they know, oh, that maybe the body is wrapped in those, or like, I saw a movie once where they found a body and they were able to find the crime scene because the rug that the body had been rolled up in was unique to a certain hotel chain. So those type of details, if you're going to do those, you kind of know those up front. If I'm going to kill somebody in a Marriott and wrap them up in the Marriott carpet, the Marriott has a very unique carpet. But you have to figure out a way for your characters to, you have to know how your characters are going to link those two things together, how they're going to know that's Marriott carpet, because maybe they're not people that spend a lot of time in Marriotts, that kind of thing. And you also clean up other things than murders. I mean, if you're breaking in, you want to make sure you're not leaving any fingerprints. Is this are you stealing something that you don't want to be detected right away? You know, you steal in a different way, than you don't toss the place. You leave everything kind of where it is, take what you need and go. Or are you leaving a message? You toss the place, they know you've been there.
What is the most creative body disposal you've written?
I I've done I love dumping bodies in things like the trash compactor. I have one, it's in my standby. I have not used it yet, but I have one in my standby that I'm looking for. Little short story that goes with it. I was at a convention. We're in this, it was Dragon Con in Atlanta. Where my table, where the table was I had, behind me is the up escalator. So behind me, people are just going up the escalator all day. The escalator broke in the middle of the day, to where like the plates were popping out of it and people fell down it. Thankfully, nobody got hurt, but so they call the repair guys out to work on it. And so I'm fascinated. I've never seen the inside of an escalator before. And so these guys are climbing down in there and they're doing all this. And I look over and I tell the guys, like, man, you could put a body in there, which he did not find as amusing as I did. But one day, so that one's in my list of one day I'm going to find the right story where we find a body hidden inside an escalator rig, you know, because it again depends on does your killer want the body to be found, or are they trying to hide it where they just disappear? Obviously, if you're trying to disappear people, you try to get as far away from where people are going to stumble across this. You don't drop it in a state park to hide it. You drop it in a state park to be found. Whereas you drop it down into a river out in the middle of nowhere if you want it to disappear, or you drop it down a mine shaft or something like that. You bury it out somewhere where people don't hike, where people don't go, and that kind of thing. Or you try to incinerate it. If you're in the city, find a building with an incinerator or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you answered the next question
Oh,
as
I'm
well
sorry. I jumped ahead. Yeah, sorry.
with the rural versus urban
Yeah.
disposal. But so yeah, have you done both of those in your writing,
I
or
have, yeah. Well, a lot of my stuff takes place, like I have a mystery series that takes place in a small town. So with the rural setting, I have found the body in a state park, um, where the killer was trying to hide it but did not hide it well. Um, and I've done a lot of, like I said, we take these rides, and when we're out in the mountains or the country area, there's a lot of fields and different ravines and things like that. That's like, oh, that'd be great because you could tuck them. You can tuck them out of the way. So there's that. When you do city stuff, yeah, like I said, the incinerator is always a good one. Construction sites, you know. Um, I know
yeah,
that's an old mob
that
cliche of,
the concrete that has just been
yeah,
poured.
yeah, I know that's an old mob cliche that they would, but it's a cliche for a reason. It works. Or when places are doing before they start building subdivisions or building a new building, they dig out a bunch of stuff and then they fill it up. If you can time it just right, you can hide someone in there and then let the contractors, dispose of it for you. Because yeah, if you hide them somewhere in the dirt and cover them up well enough, if you know that the concrete's being poured the next day, then that's a good way to kind of get them out of the way. But because there's fewer places to easily hide a body in a big city where it won't be found, just because there's more people in a condensed area. You would probably have to find a way to make the body smaller, you know, cut
Yeah,
it up,
and
or yeah.
you'd also have to deal with, I would think, in these days, a lot of cameras as
You're right.
well.
Yeah, right. Because like, yeah, you go to New York City, you're on camera all the time. Play a place like that size. Whereas in a small town, there are more areas where you're not on someone's camera.
Even the ATMs, all of them have
Hmm.
cameras. So yeah,
Yeah. The trick then is being able to get all of that footage and then have them put it together so you can
mm,
follow. I mean, TV makes it look easy.
yeah, they do.
It's not easy. Yeah, it's because
And
that's a
then
bunch of different entities
yeah,
that you have to convince to let you, one, have the access to it. Then you've got to have someone to actually spend the hours and hours and hours to go through it, hoping they find something.
yeah, and it also
Um,
depends on the video quality too. I mean, these days it's a
Absolutely.
little better, but it still might not be very good quality video.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If you ever watch TV, the news, and they're showing like video of like this guy robbed a store, and it's like that could be anybody. It's like we can take pictures of the of other planets with crystal clear high def, but we can't take a picture from 10 feet away and tell who it is. Yeah, so I don't know, it's weird. But yeah, but those are things too. And I mean, in fiction, we do have to shorthand that. And now we were talking about TV shows make it look easy, but they have to shorthand all that because it would be really dull to watch them pour over that for like 3 days. But in fiction too, I mean, we do that. I mean, in my writing, I shorthand things. And in that it's easy too. We can just throw out a line of, well, it's taken us 2 days to comb through all this, and you can just kind of jump ahead. But
Yeah, yeah, that's what chapter endings are for.
exactly. Yes, you can kind of talk about what we had to do, but you don't have to watch them pour over this stuff for days and hope they find something. And so yeah, because in fiction, we really, you know, no cases are ever wrapped up in real life as quick as they are in fiction.
Yeah. Okay. So, how does your killer deal with it when the body is actually found?
Oh, that's yeah. Well, I guess again it depends. If they wanted it to be found, if that's part of the plan. Like right now, the one I'm working on one now where the one I talked about earlier with the body harvesting, he leaves the bodies to be found because he gets a perverse kind of pleasure out of taunting, and plus while people are looking, he's leaving like clues that lead in the wrong direction. And so that's part of his plan, is to throw everybody off because they're looking for the person that could do this awful thing, and they're not putting it together that he's doing this.
Do you prefer writing characters who stumble over their own lies, or killers that are more polished in their confronting the police?
The ones that stumble are more fun, because they're trying to think on the fly, and so you can get a lot of comedy out of that, which can sometimes be a nice counterpoint to the murder and mayhem that you've written so far. And so sometimes writing that can be a lot of fun because they are scrambling, and it allows you to do kind of crazy stuff in small amounts. Whereas the polished killers, they tend to not only have plan A, but they've probably got plans B, C, D, and E just in case something goes wrong. So they're not as flustered as easily. They don't have to scramble. It's like, oh crap, they found the body quicker than I needed. Okay, plan B. And they just shift gears. Um, those can be fun to write too because you have to have those plans. You have to see what they're doing. And usually those are the killers or those are the villains where it's because they are so smart. Sometimes they're smarter than the hero or as smart as the hero. So then it's not only is it outthinking each other, but how does one get the upper hand on the other if they are on that level playing field? Whereas someone panicking, if one side's calm and the other side's panicking, the side that's calm probably has a bit of an advantage because they're thinking clearly.
So, what's the balance between when you're doing dealing with clues and evidence and stuff, between too much clues, making it too obvious, and not enough, making it seem unbelievable that they solved the crime?
Hmm. Yeah, I I don't want to. I love red herrings. I don't want to just offer one. Oh, I know it's this guy. It's not. I'm not writing Columbo. We know who it is. Columbo knows who it is. The fun in that is watching Columbo, trip them up. That's not what I'm writing. So I'm writing this where, okay, unless it's one where we know the killer, because sometimes that happens. Sometimes you know who the killer is, and so it's just how do they catch them. But if you don't know who it is and you've kept the identity secret as throughout the story until we get to near the end. You don't want just to put clues that points to just one character. You put clues that could be any of these three guys. So now we're looking at 3 people. And then as you start whittling those away and going, okay, it can't be this guy. So now we're down to 2. It makes it more, I think it makes it more interesting because your readers are going, oh, maybe it is this one. And your reader is trying to solve it with your characters. You can get some good interactions from the reader that way. My first novel came out was called Evil Ways, and it is a mystery thriller where I don't divulge the killer's identity until later in the book when it's revealed. When they figure it out is when the audience knows. And so anytime we had seen anything from the killer's point of view, I just referred to the killer as the killer, you know. The killer watched from a distance, as. And so I kept it vague. I didn't use he, I didn't use she. It was always the killer. And so that when we get to the end and it's revealed, all the clues that I had planted hopefully point toward that person, but they also pointed toward a few other people. But I remember after the book came out, I was working this. I had a day. I was working a day job, and I had this job. And I go into work one morning, and I sit down at my desk, and my phone rings, and it's someone on the second floor, who I work with often. And so I was thinking, oh, we're getting started early. And she goes, man, she goes, you son of a gun. She didn't say son of a gun, but she said, you son of a gun. I was like, what's the matter? And she goes, I stayed up all night finishing your damn book last night. And I'm like, oh, okay. She goes, okay, I'm confused. I thought, and we spent 20 minutes trying to explain to her why this guy wasn't the killer and this one was. And because she hadn't put all the clues together. And so I love that. I love that people are like, wait, what? And then they can go back and you go back and point to the clues and they go, oh, I missed that, or that makes so much more sense now. I hadn't thought of that. So I like doing stuff like that. I want the clues to make sense.
Okay, what's the strangest clue or forensic detail you've used against the killer?
Ah, it's the simple ones that look out of place. The murder victim's apartment was tossed. So you go in and it's a mess. But you find a a pool ball from like a pool table on the floor. They don't have a pool table. Where's that from? That could be and so but then you have to make that go somewhere. I love when characters can, say things that mean multiple things depending on, what lens you're viewing it through. Yeah, those are fun. So I enjoy doing that.
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here. It's been a fascinating chat. I'd like to thank you for being our guest today.
My pleasure. This was fun. I like I said earlier, I love killing. I love killing characters. It's very cathartic.
Okay.
It's a lot of fun at times. So yeah, so being able to talk murder is lots of fun. Thank you.
Okay, so that's it for this episode of Words That Kill, and please join us for the next episode when it airs. That's all for now. Bye.